This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Kicking off hour two, Money Moves, VSiN, the sports betting network, alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. We're live as always in downtown Las Vegas. Circa Resort and Casino had a great spot with VSiN's own Adam Burke over the course of the last half hour. If you missed any of it, you can always download Money Moves wherever you get your podcasts. Listen on your own time each and every day. Coming up in about 30 minutes, Matt Fortuna will join the program. Great college football writer, also one of the beat writers when it comes to covering the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and get the latest on everything that has transpired in the last 48 hours. We're actually going to start, though, talking a little NBA Cup, because the 2025 NBA Cup quarterfinals get underway today. We got 2 games today, 2 tomorrow, JVT, and lots of injury updates for all 4 of the games, really. Let's start with Miami and Orlando. These two played last Friday, resulted in a 1-point home win for the Magic, 106-105. They were 6.5-point home favorites that night. Virtual pick'em tonight, and you might ask yourself why. Well, the Magic's lead scorer, Franz Wagner, which is just fun to say, suffered a high ankle sprain the other night. He will miss tonight's game and is expected to miss the next 2 to 4 weeks as well. The good news, it wasn't more serious. The MRI revealed no structural damage. There was an early fear that maybe it could be more serious. It's not, and they've got Paolo Banchero back, who's been working his way back the last couple of games, although the opportunity to kind of slow roll him the way they have feels like it goes out the window a little bit now, having to overcompensate for Franz?
I would say so. I mean, I think it's a pretty big loss that he's not going to be out there, and I think it should probably be more impactful we're talking about here because, as you mentioned, Banchero just coming back. The fact that Franz, I think, is their more important offensive player, potentially not being out. And the Heat are relatively healthy. I mean, Tyler Herro's on the injury report, but he's available. Yep. He's going to play. So we're seeing 1.5s, like juiced to the dog side. You know, we're essentially at a pick across the market. I'd lean a little bit toward Miami here, and I wouldn't say no to, like, crafting a mini rollover future here of Miami to essentially make it out of the East, just win the next 2 games. Mm-hmm. Because I like this Heat team a lot. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, added them to win the Eastern Conference. They're a team that's got really strong upside when it comes to this new offense that they've rolled out there. Now 24 games in, it is still holding as one of the best offenses in the association. They've got some defensive versatility as well, especially when Bam Adebayo's out there. But they're the top 15 team. They're 13th in offensive efficiency, but more importantly, 5th in defense, top 8 in net rating. It's a team that I think is a little undervalued for the most part. So I'm kind of down with Miami, not only in this spot with a short number, again, pick, or maybe even plus 1.5, depending on where you look, but maybe even getting out of whatever's going to come out of that little Toronto, New York quadrant that they're going to face. We'll
get to that game in a second. I am curious from a total perspective at 235.5. If you had any feel on this one, it has seen some under money to this point. Yeah. Miami, you talk about their offensive efficiency, but they've been really good on defense as well. Both teams have.
So we were chatting about this in the Harvard Handicappers group chat. And you can check it out wherever you get your podcast, by the way. Go ahead and follow it on Spotify.
Do you pause because you don't say RIP anymore?
It's muscle memory, you know, but I can't say it anymore.
You're this close.
You know? So check out Zach Cohen every single day, Monday through Friday. I'm on Thursdays. I believe Kelly's on Tuesdays. He was on today for sure. But the whole logic here is that, so these NBA Cup games, just from memory, right, narratively, they are mini playoff games. These guys take this seriously. So what does that mean? Pace goes down, defensive intensity goes up. And so I don't think it's just this game, but you can make the argument that betting these NBA Cup games under in general might be the way to go. And you're seeing it a little bit here. The other game that we're going to talk about a little bit, some spots opened up 228. We're down to 226. Some spots actually open 231. We're down to 225.5. And you talked about the total move here where we've kind of bounced around a little bit. We were up to as high as 235.5. We're starting to see maybe some trickle down here. I'd lean toward betting this thing under, though. Again, I think to this team, and by the way, some spots open 237.5 here. I think that you're going to see a slower pace in these games. I think you're going to see more of these intensity. I think you're just going to see a faux playoff type game as they're playing for, you know, an actual prize. And I think there's something to be said of these NBA Cup games potentially being unders as we've now approached the knockout stage.
Okay, let's go to that Knicks-Raptors game that you mentioned. New York out from 3.5-point favorites to 5 most spots, it looks like. You also said that big move to the under. 225.5 at FanDuel, 226 it looks like most shops here. Karl Anthony Towns missed Sunday's game against the Magic, questionable tonight with the calf issue. And then on Toronto side, RJ Barrett not going to play as that knee sprain continues to mess with him. Team announced yesterday he had to to get another plasma injection in the knee. How do you see it?
By the way, I went back and looked. This was just to Las Vegas, just to add to the point. But NBA Cup games, I believe I have them down at 5-1 to the under in Las Vegas. So keep that in mind. But again, speaking to the point of these getting
concept-wise,
yeah, concept. Raptors and Knicks, I think, is what you're asking me. I apologize, I was looking that up. I kind of like the Raptors here. I mean, I think that when you look at the injuries, we'll see if Karl Anthony Towns is going to be available with the questionable tag. But I like this Raptors team a lot. When you look at the way they can play, the way they can defend, they're big, they're strong, they're versatile enough to take on any of the defensive assignments they would need. Obviously, if Karl Anthony Towns doesn't play, it's just even better for Toronto in a spot like this. But I think that Toronto would be live to get this done, not only just stay inside of the number, but potentially win the game outright and move on to the next spot. Depends, though. We've seen some interesting movement here. 4.5 to 5.5, then a little bit of a trickle back down, depending on where you look for your number. Some spots open at 3.5 and has made its way up. So I think that Toronto, who's been a little bit of an undervalued team throughout the year, could potentially get this done at home.
So what's been their recent problem? Is it the RJ Barrett injury or what? Because they were so hot. They had this 9-game win streak, 13-1 over that 14-game span. They have since dropped 5 of their last 6 games, including in overtime to the Charlotte Hornets. So what has changed the last couple weeks? I
mean, it's coincided with Barrett's absence. I don't know if it's the exact reason why they're failing. I mean, one of the reasons is their defense over the last couple of games has really kind of fallen to the wayside in terms of at least efficiency. If you look at these stretch that we're talking about here, in which they've lost 5 out of the last 6, they put up defensive ratings individually of 119 or higher in 4 of them. So, like, the defense, which was kind of carrying the way, for the most part, has kind of fallen off. Now, you can maybe, I think, attribute that to a couple of different reasons as to why that has happened. For example, if you look over this stretch, 4 of the opponents that we're talking about here have shot over 40% from 3 against Toronto. We might just be talking about a 5-game sample size of some variance in which they're just getting burned by some hot shooting, which tends to happen over the course of a long regular season. I think they're better defensively than what they have shown. And if you just look at it, that really is the reason. Over the 6-game sample size we're talking about, but specifically going back to that Knicks game that they played right after that Charlotte contest that we're discussing, the effective field goal percentage of 57% or higher allowed. Like, this is a team that is better than what that shows.
Okay, looking ahead to tomorrow, and we'll preview these games deeper tomorrow ahead of them, and we'll see where the lines ultimately go. But we've got the Spurs and Lakers as well as the Suns at OKC, and that's a huge spread, 15.5. I mean, can anyone stop the Thunder in the West? They're minus 205 to qualify for the final and odds on to win it all.
I think Zach Cohen would tell you his wonderful Phoenix Suns could potentially do it. But no, I think, look, it's a short sample size tournament. You just got to win 3 games. You got to win 1 at home and then 2 in Las Vegas.
They're seemingly winning every game.
Yeah, they're taking on everybody. They want to win these games as well. I think Kelly had bet the Thunder to win this thing. I think you can make the argument that minus 120 is actually a pretty fair price to play here for them to win this whole thing. We're not asking them to win like 6 straight on 7 different neutrals like we do in the NCAA tournament. You're asking them to win 1 game at home and 2 games out here in Las Vegas, which I think they're perfectly capable of doing. The fly in the ointment, though, could potentially be the return of Victor Wembanyama. And we don't know yet for sure, but we do know he's traveling with San Antonio. That's the only thing we know. We know he's been practicing. So the Spurs are definitely leaving the door open that when they take the court tomorrow, it could be Victor Wembanyama on the floor. And if that's the case, I mean, that is a pretty big fly in the ointment. And
we mentioned this earlier when we were just teasing the segment. The Spurs have been able to stay above board pretty well here in his absence, 8-3 without Wemby on the court in this 11-game absence.
I mean, and we deserve it. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't it be great narratively to see the young Spurs take on OKC out here in Las Vegas for a right to win, or at least move on to the NBA Cup final? I mean, 2 young teams kind of going at it. One's got the upside, the other, of course, winning the finals. Should note, too, I mean, we could continue to say this, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Chicago Bears of the NBA, they are 8-0 in clutch games, so games within 5 points, 5 or fewer minutes left to go. You probably should not be undefeated in games that go to clutch time, and yet when you have 3 really good individual isolation scorers who can control any portion of a game, you're probably going to have some higher upside here. But LA is definitely that version of Chicago where you look at them and go, yeah, they're fine, but they shouldn't be this good from a record standpoint.
Okay, they are the Spurs, that is, plus 154 money line dogs against LA in that one, 18-1 for the tournament.
I mean, that's just so hard because you can't, from playing like the dog standpoint. And by the way, I would lean, like, if you want to take a gamble, you take San Antonio plus 4.5, and we'll see if Wemby comes back. But the problem with doing anything futures-wise in a tournament like this is you have to beat OKC. Even taking a price like that and then getting in and playing against OKC in the next game, it's going to be like, okay, cool, congratulations. Like now, like what are you going to do? You're going to hedge at minus 1,400 or something like that, which is going to be the other side or somewhere about that. Like it doesn't really put you in a position to do it.
To follow up on this conversation, Wemby, in terms of defensive player of the year, so if he does come back, that'll be 11 games that he's missed.
I think he missed one prior. Let me double check.
When you think about the greater scope of the season where back-to-backs, rest, trying to make a play, like, is there a world with which he gets to 65?
I mean, I'm never going to say never, but you're talking about a very small margin of error in terms of missed games for him to not miss out on the threshold.
He's still. I asked the question just because he's still the second shot on the board at 4-1. Chet Holmgren, your favorite, at plus 160.
No, I have been operating under the assumption that he is done.
Okay.
Like I think you just have to. I mean, again, so to your point, missed 11 total. The margin, if my math is correct, is 17, right? So you're not going to sit on back-to-backs. He's not going to get injured at all. He's going to play almost every single game the rest of the way.
No retweak of the calf. And
you don't think with the soft tissue injury that this team is going to say on the second leg of a back-to-back, go get him, kid? There's no shot. So you should operate with the assumption that he is not going to meet the threshold.
Okay.
I think it would be a massive upset if he did.
All right, good reminder. It is Tuesday. Looking ahead to tomorrow. Wednesdays are for blackjack at Brocco. Hit the tables and play blackjack. If luck doesn't go your way, you get 50% of your losses back in Brocco cash, up to $500. Use promo code VSIN to grab your bonus and try again with the house money. Go to playbrocco.com or scan the QR code you see there on your screen for our television audience. Use that promo code VSIN, VSIN. We're going to step aside when we come back. More basketball talk, but going to the hardwood in college. Lots of ranked teams in action today, and why JVT just can't quit the Kentucky Wildcat.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're rocking and rolling on this Tuesday edition of Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM channel 158. And if you haven't heard already, ProfitX is offering you a 20% purchase match up to $100 when you sign up right now. ProfitX, if you haven't heard, the #1 sports prediction market in 40-plus states where you can trade main lines, player props, parlays, even request your own odds and bet yes, no on touchdown scorers each week, plus a whole lot more in this holiday season. Be on the lookout for the 7 days of ProfitXmas giveaway with special prizes all week long. Download ProfitX now. Use the promo code VSIN to get started. Again, VSIN, that code, when you download the ProfitX app. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Want to shout out Brian M. for tweeting in today. And please do, if you ever want to join in on the conversation, tweet at us, at MeJVT, at Storm Buonantony, at VSiN Live. We've also got an email, moneymoves@vsin.com. We said, you want to get JVT riled up.
Oh, my God, I saw this.
Phillip Rivers, before he has even done anything, he just got signed to the practice squad in Indy this morning. Third shot on the board for comeback player of the year. Let's go.
You can't be this. We can't be this. We can't be this stupid. There's no way. I mean, first off, again, the AP, the rules, the clarification, all of that stuff. All of you whined so much when Joe Flacco won it, so it's been changed.
Yeah.
These guys aren't winning it.
Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, Phillip Rivers.
Also, I'll book it for you at 18-1. I mean, what are we doing? You want 18-1 on a guy who's got what? How many games? Maybe he's not playing this week.
No.
So 4.
So
what are we doing at 18-1? It should be 5,000-1. This is unbelievable that anybody would bet this if this is the case.
So the Indianapolis Colts, by the way, getting double digits at the Seattle Seahawks this week. I don't know how you could have missed it, but Daniel Jones done for the year with an Achilles injury, and apparently Riley Leonard was also hurt in the game this past weekend with a knee injury. So should he be unable to go, which we haven't seen confirmation one way or another, still a long way to go this week before we get that finalized likely from Shane Steichen, but it would be Brett Rippon elevated from the practice squad to start the game, and Phillip Rivers would be the next man up should he get injured and there's someone unavailable. Emergency quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, by the way, if you were looking for another feather in the cap in the offensive rookie of the year market,
right.
Tyler Warren for the Colts.
None of the other offensive rookie candidates are emergency backup. I'll tell you that much. That's how versatile my guy is. He should have a shot at winning this. And none of this stupid, conversation. No, he is. Also, it's been pointed out, Phillip Rivers did sign a one-day contract with the Chargers. So did the Colts have to trade for him?
Also, apparently, I don't know if it's if he plays or if it's because he's been signed to a team now, it resets his Hall of Fame candidacy.
That's fine. He's not going to get
So it has to start over, the timing for which he could be considered. Okay, whoa. Simmer down, Sally.
What do you mean? I'm making a declarative statement. Phillip Rivers, not a...
Back when I was in college, when I was working at Applebee's, Phillip Rivers would come in to the Applebee's in San Marcos, and we would always give him booth number 84 because it could fit 10 people, and it would be him and all of his kids.
Yeah. See?
One of them is older than Riley Leonard, so there you go. Mm-hmm. Fun fact. All good there with the Indianapolis Colts. Also, one last thing on this, because I thought this was funny too. Jamie Eisenberg, NFL analyst over at CBS, does a lot of their fantasy content. He tweeted, if I told you this morning Jalen Hurts would throw a pick and a fumble on the same play, or Phillip Rivers would come out of retirement, which one would you think was fake? That's pretty good, right?
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Okay, let's get into a little college basketball. We discussed some of the games earlier with VSiN's own Adam Burke. He had to play in one of the, mid-major type games, and all of that work up at vsin.com each and every day. If you're a subscriber, you get unlimited access to all of those articles and our betting tools. But I know there are a few games with top 25 implications that certainly interest you. Where would you like to go first?
I mean, there's a couple. Let's go with... Actually, let's start with Kentucky, just because NC Central...
No longer in the top 25, by the way.
You are right, but I wanted to talk about this team because it's a top 25 caliber team. And, big picture, I'm pretty interested in what this Kentucky team's going to be as you move forward. I was talking with a couple of folks, Matt Humans, Chris Passero on Sunday when we were out here at Circa, and I was asking and kind of throwing out there, look, I don't know if I want to, give up on Kentucky. And, look, they're 44.5-point favorites here today. It's not about tonight. It's more about this team kind of getting right as you move along. And I always tend to kind of, with your team actually, you can, I think, find some similarities here in that they're a team that's largely been injured, has been missing 3 starters, and even some of the shortcomings, I think you can attest to the fact that it's just been a short-handed group. And I think that I don't want to give up on a team like Kentucky because I think there's still some upside here. And so it might be time to buy low, and maybe this is going to be the portion of the schedule as you move forward for Kentucky that I think it's going to maybe be time to buy in on it. They're going to take on North Carolina Central. They get Indiana at home. We could talk about them because they're taking on Penn State, and I think they're a little bit of a beatable group. But I think there's something here for Kentucky.
It just makes me laugh conceptually, and I know it's NC Central, but buy low point on a 44.5-point favorite.
Well, we're not talking about today.
I know.
We're talking about big picture.
I'm just saying. It's funny. Total in that game, by the way. The Wildcats are laying 44.5 in a game that's total is 146.5, just to put that into perspective for you. Another Wildcat, Villanova at Michigan, number 2 ranked team in the country. The Wolverines laying a pretty hefty number in this one. Did you have an opinion one way or the other?
Yeah, I think for Michigan, it's more about what we've talked about all the time with some of these teams. Obviously, they have been absolutely crushing everybody they face. They come back home on Saturday, and they just keep going. Their 3rd straight game in which they scored 100 points. They beat down Rutgers 101-60, and now here they are taking on Villanova. Villanova team that ever since an opening loss to BYU has been beating up on their opponents, but they have not faced a team outside of the top 140. Inside of the top 140 of Ken Pom rankings right now. So this is a big step up in competition. But I'm going to be curious to see if they can get this done. Michigan, if you're looking at this almost perfect resume at this point right now, one of the things that does stick out is they're just kind of on the fringes in the top 60s in terms of rebounding. And Villanova, albeit against a pretty weak schedule, has been a pretty dominant rebounding team, specifically on the offensive end. They've generated a ton of second-chance opportunities here, 2nd in the country in offensive rebounding rate. So if you can kind of beat them up on the glass, slow down the pace, which is what they're going to do, or at least try to do. Michigan comes into this thing top 20 in terms of tempo, top 15 in terms of average possession length, and then Villanova is going to come in. They're a team that we talked about, Stormy. They're a team that talked about the slow pace, the high rate of threes, the ability to get up there and generate some variance in some of these games. If there was a team that can stay inside of this number, spring an upset, whatever it is, it could be Villanova.
I love it. Getting 16.5, by the way, for that spread, total 153.5. Indiana, you mentioned Penn State earlier, so Indiana lay in 14.5 against the Nittany Lions, total 152.5. Penn State off to a good start, but hasn't really been tested. They're 8-1 to this point. Indiana, meanwhile, dropped each of their last two, including a recent loss on Saturday against number 6 Louisville. How do you see it?
So this one's going to be another interesting case because Indiana, as we saw, and this is kind of similar to what we just talked about Villanova, at least in the sense of rebounding kind of being the center of what we're going to talk about here. So a couple of games ago, Indiana goes out. They're on this winning streak. They go play a true road game against Minnesota. They lose that 73-64, get beat up on the glass. And here we go. 87-78 as we're looking at right now for Louisville. And should be that last game against Louisville. And again, offensive rebounding rate, relatively strong for Louisville there, generating some second chance opportunities, bombing them out from three. I do wonder if this is maybe worth playing against here as we kind of move along with Indiana. Just that they were at the top of the market, they were playing really well, and then now here they are continuing to lay some of these big numbers in the conference game. I know Penn State hasn't been particularly great on the danger maybe of slipping outside of the top 100 for KenPom, but I haven't seen enough. I wouldn't really jump on it, but I do think maybe looking at playing against Indiana here might be a play, but nothing I've really loved a lot.
Not a ranked game here, but a team that you were talking about with Adam Burke earlier on in the program in the Mountain West, Colorado State, a team that's been playing really well here down the stretch. They've got Dartmouth today and are a big favorite. Anything you ended up firing on in that game or thinking about?
No, I think the one team I want to watch and see if they're going to be worthy of covering a big number like that. Because again, you take a lot of threes, you're a really slow-paced team. It's a big number to lay for Colorado State, but they're up to a 21.5 point favorite. Was 19.5. I think one of the things that is going to be interesting tonight, as we talked a little bit about it, was the matchup that Adam thankfully actually had a small opinion on, which was Florida.
And UConn.
Yeah, Florida and UConn. And this backcourt being as bad as it has been, UConn with their guards, especially like Solo Ball, who's got some pretty good upside as a 3-and-D player, good defensive player at the point of attack. I think that you can make the case that UConn's going to be the play here. As Adam said, some spots open 1.5 and got bet up. I think UConn's going to be a side to look at here. We'll see if the backcourt struggles continue for Florida, but I don't think it's a great matchup for the Gators.
That's number 18 versus number 5, the one ranked on ranked game that we do have tonight. Part of the Jimmy V Classic over there at Madison Square Garden in New York City. One of 2 games out there today. Clemson and number 10 BYU, the other game. Cougars around a 5.5 point favorite in that one. Okay, we're going to shift gears from college basketball to college football coming up next. Excited to have Matt Fortuna join us on the program. He was listening in on Pete Bakwava's press conference today as the Notre Dame Fighting Irish have to put a bow on their season. What has his perspective been on the last 48 hours for Notre Dame and some early thoughts he has on bowl season as it lays out beginning next week already? We've got to step aside here on Money Moves. Back in a flash on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. The big news this past weekend in the college football world: Miami in, Notre Dame out. To discuss that and all things college football playoff, Matt Fortuna joins us in studio here at Circa Resort and Casino. Excellent college football writer. You can check out all of the work at the Inside Zone with Matt Fortuna, also co-host of the Independent podcast, breaking down all things Notre Dame football. And I know the big news of the day is that the Irish basketball mascot was released, but I think we can start with football.
Their best player actually got hurt, Marcus Burden, so that actually is the big basketball news of the day. But we will keep this to football. And yeah, it's funny the way you introed it, Notre Dame versus Miami. In my opinion, it should have been Notre Dame versus Alabama.
Yeah.
I think Alabama is the team that benefited more than anyone else. I don't see much uproar outside of South Bend for people thinking Miami got in because Miami won the head-to-head with Notre Dame back in week 1. But certainly going scorched earth right now on the committee, on the ACC, and not without reason. But I think the big question is, what's this all mean for Notre Dame moving forward, and how are they going to handle this setback?
So, I mean, so what was it called? Memorandum of what?
Understanding.
Of understanding. So this is a real thing, huh? So they get to now starting next year. They're going to be locked in if they're a top 12 team, huh?
But you can't tell. I mean, yes, that is true. That looks good on paper. Mm-hmm. I would go back to the committee, and I think if they genuinely don't think Notre Dame should be in the playoff, what's stopping them from simply ranking them 13?
Sure.
Like, again, we're not inside that room. None of us have a clue what they're using for data. It's 12 years of nonsense in some ways. So I don't know what the value of that is. It sounds good, but I think when you take a step back, it's like, what's that really mean?
Okay.
Well, it's probably going to be 16 before we know it anyways.
Well. And we'll still be arguing about 17.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Whoever is on the outside looking in is always going to be arguing about something. That said, athletic director for the Irish, Pete Baklava, has been all over the place this week talking about the different layers of it, his anger with the ACC, even at a press conference today. So what's kind of the latest from that standpoint?
Yeah, a lot of anger, not a whole lot of action, at least not yet. He has said permanent damage was the phrase he used to describe the relationship with the ACC, although he got asked later on, can this be fixed? Will you be able to sit down with Jim Phillips, the commissioner, and other people and fix it out? And he said, nothing's permanent. Like, time heals all wounds. We will some point get together and hash all this out. That day will not be, today or tomorrow. So long term, I wonder about the future of the Notre Dame ACC relationship, although I don't think there are other conferences that would give Notre Dame the deal that the ACC is giving them right now. And if you're the ACC, look, Notre Dame, you're our first cousin once removed. You're not our brother or sister. Like, we need to go all in to support Miami. We did not do that 2 years ago with Florida State. And whether that was a cause and effect or not, Florida State got the short end of the stick. Alabama got in over Florida State. So I think most people inside the ACC are happy with the way this process played out. Certainly they want Notre Dame for their gate revenue and the media rights revenue. But I don't think the coaches and the ADs within the ACC are thinking we need to bend over backwards for Notre Dame right now.
All right, so let's talk about some games then, yeah?
Let's
because
do
we
it.
got some good ones here. You have the sheets in front of you. Do you have any have you seen the lines, any hot takes of the 4 that we're going to see here in the first round?
Yeah, it's interesting. Of the 8 first-round teams, 3 of them have lost their head coaches. Yeah. And one of them who's not there at all is playing Kivitt at Ole Miss, which I think makes that game interesting for the simple fact that you've got a new head coach. Most of your offensive coaching staff has already accepted the LSU job, but is staying on to coach this game. So you've got one foot out the door, and you're playing a group of 5 team that, 1, I don't think you would take seriously to begin with. 2, you already beat this earlier this season. So are they going to be galvanized by losing their head coach, Ole Miss, or are they going to think, this will be a cakewalk, let's get on? And I look at that number 16, that's very high. And again, I know the talent differential on this team, on these 2 teams, are what they are. I think Tulane covers that game. I don't think they win, but I think they have a chance to make it interesting.
Well, I got bet up too. It's up to 17.5 now. So
maybe the Green Wave.
Yeah. If the well, I'll say this to your point. I saw one of the reports about like sending the staffers back to Ole Miss, and the way it was phrased was something along the lines of like they'll be mostly, I'm paraphrasing, but mostly focused on the game. And it's like, well, I'd like 100% of that to be on the game.
You would think so. And like, in fairness, John Summerall just took the Florida job. Now Tulane and Florida are a little bit different. Yeah. Certainly, this is a bigger moment for Tulane in its grand football history. But I think the unspoken part of all this, Lane Kiffin did not want those guys to go until he eventually relented and said, you can. LSU told Lane Kiffin, we will pay you whatever your playoff bonuses were based on Ole Miss advancing. So there's a lot of self-interest for Lane Kiffin here, too, for Ole Miss to make a run here. And
you mentioned the way it played out the first time around. Tulane's a very different team, I feel like, now, too, than when they had that 35-point loss as well. So the 17.5 is a little bit tempting on the Green Wave here. Alabama and Oklahoma, that's another one where we've seen a little bit of a shift in the line. Money seems to be coming in on the Sooners after that performance that we saw from Alabama in the SEC title game. What do you make of that? Sitting 1.5 right now at DraftKings, total 40.5.
I like Alabama, and look, I don't think either of these teams are I think most people would much rather see Notre Dame and maybe another team than both Oklahoma and Alabama. Now, Oklahoma in particular has earned their way into this field, but that offense is really tough to watch. And even the wins, the quote-unquote good wins, winning at Alabama, I don't think aged as well as we thought it would. Winning at Tennessee certainly did not age as well as we thought it would. We saw Vanderbilt win that same game by 21 points at the end of the regular season. And, the first game in Tuscaloosa that Oklahoma won, the post-game win expectancy for Oklahoma, I think, was in the single digits. I hate to use the word fluky because they earned the win, but the odds of that happening again, I think, are not favorable. And historically, when you get 2 blue bloods in a rematch in the same season, so long as they're on the same playing field, which these 2 are as the 8 and 9 seed, the game 1 loser always comes out with revenge and a chip on their shoulder and has that mental edge. So I think Alabama wins this one. I think it's weird that one of these teams is guaranteed a spot in the Final 8 because I don't think either of them are particularly good. But it should be a good game, a good environment. It's the Friday night game, I believe. Yeah. It's the first game, and it's an SEC on SEC game, so there are going to be a lot of eyeballs.
All right, what about the belle of the ball, I guess we'll call them, Miami. Everybody's shocked they get in. Now they get Texas A&M. They're a 4-point dog here to the Aggies. It happens all the time in college basketball, right? When the team on the bubble makes it in and then they lose their first game, like, oh, they didn't deserve to be in. So will Miami prove people wrong and tell them they deserve to be in with a win over Texas A&M?
I think they absolutely have a chance. I think that's probably a more talented roster than Texas A&M. You feel bad for Notre Dame fans watching the two teams that beat you by a combined 4 points, keep you out of the playoff, go play each other in the first round. My thing with Miami is I think they're good enough to win the whole thing. I just don't know if I could trust them for 4 games. Yeah. I could trust them to maybe beat A&M. Hell, I think they could give Ohio State a really good game if they beat A&M and play them in the quarterfinal. I would at least take Miami with the points here, +4 as a road dog. I think that's a favorable spot. Texas A&M, late in the season, I don't think played as well as they were playing earlier in the season. I think Marcel Reed's a bit of a turnover liability. And I just think this Miami team is absolutely dominant up front where it matters most.
Not to stray too far off of the playoff games, but because Notre Dame opted out of the Pop-Tart Bowl, Georgia Tech is now in that game facing BYU, which is a 4.5-point spread there. Did anything stick out to you about that matchup since Notre Dame's not playing in it?
Yeah, I mean, BYU and Notre Dame being the first 2 teams out,
yep.
I use that term lightly, but would have been a fun game. I think I saw Notre Dame would have been a 14-point favorite, which seemed very high in my opinion, because I think this is a very good BYU team. I'm curious about BYU because everyone knocked their schedule all year, and yet the only team they lost to was Texas Tech. And Kalani Sitake came out after that game and said, that's the best team in the country. Our only loss is to the best team in the country. I can't wait to see how they do against everyone else because I think I'll be proven correctly. So in a weird way, he's trying to pump up his own team. Georgia Tech, though, was so bad defensively down the stretch this season. I know Haynes King is a definition of a dog at quarterback, but I just don't know how this Georgia Tech defense, I know they played a good enough game against Georgia. They didn't win it. I don't know how they're going to slow down BYU because they've just been terrible in the second half of the season. They should have lost to Boston College. They got smoked at home by Pittsburgh with a chance to make the ACC title game. There's very little that was inspiring about the Yellow Jackets the last couple weeks of the season.
All right, we have to ask, too. We have a Heisman that is yet to be awarded.
Speaking of dogs at quarterback.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think I saw
Which one?
Yeah, and I think I saw
Pavia was in my head.
You submitted your ballot. What do you got?
So I voted. I'm not allowed to say who I voted or they'll take it away.
I guess I'll ask, what do you think will happen?
I think Fernando runs away with it. Okay. I do think
he's minus 1,000 right now in the market.
I think it was one of the rare instances where we went into the final weekend not knowing who was going to win it, even if we had an idea of who would make it. And that San Mendoza game seemed like kind of a Heisman off, so to speak. And when they're both struggling in the first half, you're thinking maybe Pavia can steal it here, by virtue of those bad performances. But for Fernando Mendoza to do what he did, he looked dead after that first play. Like he was not moving, and he gets right back up 2 plays later. And he made more big plays than Julian Sain did, and he was missing his best receiver, Omar Cooper Jr., throughout that. He had the money throw on 3rd down to clinch the game to Charlie Becker. And, Ohio State's defense was, on paper, better defensively than Indiana was coming into that game. But Indiana was the better of the 2 defenses. And I think part of that is attributed to Fernando Mendoza figuring out Ohio State's defense in the second half. So you do what he did, not just in that game, but at the end of Iowa, at the end of Oregon, at the end of Penn State. You can't knock Indiana anymore. You could last year with that schedule. You can't anymore. And I'm not saying they're going to win it all, but you're the best player on the nation's best team, and you're doing something that's never happened before. That's really hard for anyone else to overcome.
Is Indiana a true contender to win the national championship? How you see it?
Absolutely. Yeah. A rematch would be interesting for the same reasons I mentioned with Alabama, Oklahoma. I think Ohio State would probably figure out what they did wrong the first time. But that potential semifinal game, I believe, would be Indiana versus Texas Tech or Oregon, who they already beat. Tech, to me, is the biggest wild card of all this because I think they might be good enough to win it all. They might be bad enough to lose Oregon.
It'll be interesting to see how those teams play coming off the first round bye with all of the time they have off. We saw how that impacted some teams last year. All I know is if Indiana does win the national championship, we're going to get one hell of a post-game interview from Fernando Mendoza.
We'll get a gregreat Heisman speech, assuming he wins it this weekend.
Yes, no doubt about it. Matt Fortuna, everybody, make sure you follow him on X at Matt_Fortuna. All other platforms, Matt Fortuna, CFB, and check out the work, of course, at the Inside Zone with Matt Fortuna. Appreciate the time, as always, and so cool you're a Heisman voter, too. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Wrapping up this this Tuesday edition of Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. And this might be silly of me that I'm just noticing this watching our Open. Can you juggle? Are you a good juggler?
No way.
Because it looked like you were kind of like doing something with the money that it gave the illusion that you could juggle.
I've not paid attention to that at all. I don't even remember what they asked me to do. I just know that was in the ballroom of the South Point. And, yeah, I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know why they took that. I didn't even have a show at the time, so I was like, why am I here?
You did that at the South Point? I did mine here.
Yeah. Well, again, I didn't really have a show. I think mine was more of like a pity thing.
Oh,
it's like, you don't really have anything to do, but let's just put you in here and we'll see what happens going forward. Which is why we're not. Yeah, I'm just flipping the money. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I looked up as it happened, and I was like, that looks like you could be a good juggler, but no juggling skills for you, unfortunately.
No. I think I have pretty decent hand-eye coordination, but that's about it.
Okay.
I think I'm probably in like the 65th percentile in hand-eye coordination.
All right. We mentioned earlier on the
program.
program.
You look like a klutz.
I'm not good. I have a subungual hematoma on my big toe because I have stubbed it and fallen so many times.
Usually people pay for that information.
It's not a good time. It's not a good time. That said, we were talking earlier about some of the big underdogs this week on the NFL slate.
Yep.
We already broke down Colts, Seahawks, Browns, Bears, Titans, 49ers. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles, who obviously played last night. Did not end the way that they had hoped it would against the Los Angeles Chargers, which, by the way, as we do our Monday betting recap, kudos to you. You get it home on the +3 there late because Jalen Hurts throws the interception at the 1-yard line. They now are laying about 12.5 points against the hometown Vegas Raiders here. Still awaiting updates on what's going to happen here at the quarterback position for Vegas, but Geno Smith hurt his right shoulder, also had a cut on his hand. Pete Carroll told reporters on Sunday there was no structural damage. Kenny Pickett ends up coming into the game, but that's one of a handful of questions we have going into that game.
Yeah, I mean, so we can talk about all these games. I feel like some of these are pretty easy to draw a line through and move on. This seems like one of them, doesn't it? I mean, how do you trust either side right now, given the performances of both teams? I think you can make the argument that Kenny Pickett, Geno Smith to Kenny Pickett probably is not really a downgrade for a multitude of reasons, including Geno Smith's play, the play of the offensive line. I think we know the strength of Philly's defense is going to be the ability to rush the passer, so whoever's back there is going to, I think, be under duress. The question is just, do you trust that the Raiders' offense is going to be able to move the ball at all here against Philadelphia? I just don't know if that's the case. They can't run the ball. They're going to be on their back with quarterback potentially. Even if it's Geno, he's one of the worst starting quarterbacks statistically in the NFL. How are you supposed to believe that they're going to be able to stay inside of this number outside of Philly just, having its usual offensive struggles and not just being able to cover by virtue of that?
Well, and I would normally ask you, okay, so does that lend you more toward an under in this game? Because that's where my mind goes. And then you look at the total and it's 38.5. So it's a low total for this game, but that is kind of where my gut generally goes, especially considering the Eagles' offensive issues that they've had on that side. And Lane Johnson, we know, missed the game yesterday, but Landon Dickerson was also in and out playing through the injury. Jalen Carter, that injury is still one that's going on as well. So they've got their fair share of problems as well.
Well, and to give the Raiders some credit, we've talked about this throughout the season. One of the strengths of this team outside of Max Crosby is they're generally above average in limiting explosive plays. So, like, they're to the point of keeping this game under the total. Usually it's going to be like a meticulous, longer drive that'll get you for the Raiders, right? Success rate's pretty low, but other than that, they're pretty good at not allowing some of those big ones to happen. So I think in theory you're probably getting there where this game is going to go underneath that total. Weather-wise, too, I don't think we really have an accurate read yet of what the weather's going to be like that out in the Philly. So that's going to be something to monitor as well. Not all of them are from Vegas, but the boys from Vegas having to go out and make the trip to play in some winter weather. That'll obviously, I think, slow some things down here as well. But why would you want to make the case for either team right now?
You don't. Now, there is one of these big dogs that I know you want to make a case for.
Yeah.
And it is the Arizona Cardinals in Houston taking on the Texans, who you believe the Texans are kind of at the top of the market where things sit right now. That said, Arizona has a handful of injuries on the offensive side. Not only their quarterback, we're in the Jacoby Brissett show the rest of the way here, but Marvin Harrison Jr. and Xavier Weaver both missed that game against the Rams. Zay Jones and Greg Dortch already on IR. Their left tackle, Paris Johnson, left the game against the Rams with a knee injury. Evan Brown at left guard didn't play that game for personal reasons. I know the expectation is he'll be back, but there's a lot going on with Arizona. It has not looked good, yet you're tempted by the points.
I mean, it just, again, we'll go back to Sunday where everybody's singing the praises of the Houston Texans. And, like, folks, we have to take into account the entirety of the picture. They averaged less than 4.5 yards per play. in the win against Kansas City. Their offense continues to be a very below average group that is not moving at all. There's really no explosiveness to it. They're not good in terms of success rate. This offensive line is still a problem. This offense is still a problem. And when you change the roles, because, again, look at these last few weeks for the Houston Texans, not only who they've had to play, but the role in which they have been in. They were an underdog at the Chiefs. They were an underdog at the Colts. They were an underdog at home against the Buffalo Bills. They didn't cover as 5.5-point favorites, as you well remember, against the Tennessee Titans. You looked like you had something there.
No, I'm just looking at over their 5-game win streak. Their biggest win was 10 points against Kansas City. That is the
sure.
They've been largely close games that they've won down the stretch.
Right. So it's just I don't. Again, week to week, it is different. I think you have to evaluate each week as it is, what the differences are, where they're at in the betting market, and for a team like the Texans, who is like the flavor of the month. They've won the 5 straight, 6 out of 7. Their power rating has risen to the point where they're considered equals to some of these teams and just a couple of points behind teams like the Los Angeles Rams, where 3 weeks ago they were nowhere near that stratosphere. I think you really have to be careful of just jumping in and expecting this team to get out there and win this. And I'd even venture, like, if you think the Texans can cover this number, I'd look at like some defensive touchdown props.
Okay.
Because if they have to supplement this offense in some way. It is not a good offensive unit. So that to me is like the pause. It's not only the rise in the power rating, but it's the fact that now you've completely changed the role. And again, it's a somewhat unfair comp, but I will say the last time you were in this role, you needed a late score against Tennessee to get that done. You were a 5.5-point favorite, didn't even come close to covering that number.
One more here. The Jets getting double digits in Jacksonville, taking on the Jags. Tyrod Taylor left the game with Miami, dealing with a groin injury.
Yeah.
His availability in question. Justin Fields also dealing with a knee injury, so he was inactive for that game, which meant we saw Brady Cook step in. Aaron Glenn, noticeably on the podium, did not commit to Justin Fields being the guy this week either. So could it be Brady Cook time once again? Spread 12.5, total 41.5.
This one's pretty easy to
cross out.
Yeah, right.
Just move on.
A lot of injuries, a lot of concerns. I mean, I don't know what you want to do. I don't think you're really upgrading Jacksonville after last week, are you?
No.
Beating up on a Colts team that lost Daniel Jones in the middle of the game, and Riley Leonard was getting a spot, not even a spot start because he wouldn't even start, but having to come in relief in the middle of a contest.
Do they hold on and close out the division, by the way?
I mean, I hope so. I've got a little bit of Jacksonville to win the division, so I kind of hope that that's going to be the case. I think that, enough time, like when you're talking about the lead that you get or how much you can overcome, I think maybe there's enough runway there for Jacksonville to just kind of hold on to what they have as they move forward against Houston. The good thing for them, of course, is that they don't have any more games against the Texans as they're kind of in form right now. Jacksonville has the Jets this week, at the Broncos, at the Colts, and then versus the Titans. That on paper is a much easier schedule. I mean, in theory, you could be, I don't think you'll be double-digit favorites at home against the Titans, but you'll be over a touchdown favorite in 3 of the 4 games you're playing here, potentially.
Okay. I did place my first bowl bet of the postseason.
All right.
We will dive into this game a little bit more tomorrow when we do West Coast bias, but Cal against Hawaii in the Hawaii Bowl, I played the over 55.5. I think both of these offenses are going to cook on the island. And I know you have a bet, too, on the way out in college basketball real quickly. But we'll dive into that in full tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure I at least got that out there now that it's in the account.
Yeah. So like you said, Chargers yesterday, got it done just barely, +3. And then we'll add to the account because I did not send this. I forgot to put this in. But we will lay 3.5. I will lay 3.5 with UConn today against Florida.
Any rationale on the way out for anyone who missed it earlier?
I mean, I think this guard situation's in a pretty bad shape, and I think that you at least have some backcourt defenders led by Ball, who woke up last time out, who's actually shooting the ball relatively well, that I think you're going to be able to defend this backcourt, gummy it up a little bit here. Fland, I think, because he is considered the scorer amongst the two, him and Xavier Lee. I think that Fland is probably getting a brunt of the blame, but Lee has been really bad from the floor, and I think that UConn's got the horses there to shut that backcourt down, get this win, and go man-to-man with a really good front court. So we'll go UConn -3.5 at a faux home field. Madison Square Garden has been kind of a home court, if you will, for UConn.
Okay, right on. That is, if you missed any of the show today, remember as well, you can always watch and listen to Money Moves, whether it's in the VSiN Watch app or if you download us in podcast form, wherever you get your podcasts. Full full breakdown of a handful of bets in college basketball today that you can still get those bets in before all is said and done. That said, that's a wrap for us today. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place as always, right here from Circa. Appreciate both Adam Burke and Matt Fortuna for joining the program today. For our producer, Justin Emery, and JVT, I'm Stormy Buonantony. Keep it locked right here, though. Coming up after the break, after Money Moves, Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard coming up on today's show. Paul Stone delivering his best bets for college football. Then stick around, VSiN primetime beginning at 7, followed by Cashing Out and Dustin Sweetelson at 11. Have a great day, everybody. Good luck with your bets.